What are you seeing, or what would you propose to Tier 1s as best practices, Bill? What else can be done in light of these problems?
Well, I think there's a couple things. One is, from what we see, is the first part is you've got to manage the financial viability of your supply base. And I think today that's not as big of a concern because everybody's profitable. But what I have seen is a trend to kind of get away a little bit. I'm going to focus on the operational capacity problems versus the financials. So the first thing I would say is what we're seeing are the Tier 1s that are continuing to be vigilant on the financial side. And whether it's using BBK ratings or one of the other products or internally developed product, you got to continue to monitor the financial stability of your supply base because it will change from time to time, especially as we go through the growth curve. The second piece is I think you've got to look, and I think the tougher piece is looking at the operational performance of the supply base. And that's tougher. You can look at the financial piece by having them send you your financials, by talking to them over the phone. The operational piece really requires you to go to that supplier because you can't look at it through reports to figure out where they're at on a capacity standpoint. Do they have the right processes, the systems, and the management team to support the growth? So what we're seeing, the more proactive and what I would deem as best practices are the Tier 1s that, and you can't go out and see every supplier. So what they're doing is they're basically going through their supply base, using the metrics that they have and the data, and identifying where their high risks are in their supply base, and then actively going out to those suppliers and assessing them. And you know, that's not sending a supplier quality person out there because that person doesn't have the capability to assess the entity. You've got to send somebody out that can actually assess processes, systems, management team, and oh, by the way, that supplier's supply chain. Because it's not only can they manage to the current demand, can they manage to the future demand, which is going to take it one step further. And that's a difficult thing to do. And it's a difficult thing to do if you're the customer, because when you get out there, you can get financial data, but on the operational side, normally the supplier only wants to show you your book of business. And it may not be your book of business that creates the problem. Example and point is you look at the supply base today. 6 months ago, you know, a lot of the suppliers had excess capacity because the Asian customers' business was down due to all the natural disasters, right? Well, they were able to pull people over and use them on the other side of their business. Well, now those guys are going great guns to catch up. Volumes are up. And so all of a sudden, those people are being pulled to the other side of the business. And oh, by the way, they need more to catch up the volumes. And so now you've strained the supply base. And so a lot of the times when you go in to do the assessment, if you're not looking at the whole book of business and the whole operation, you really don't get a good feel for, is this thing going to trip? And that's one of the things that we've been doing a lot of is helping, providing arms and legs to some of the Tier 1s where they're trying to get those assessments done, because the OEMs are putting a lot of pressure on the Tier 1s because they don't have visibility. The Tier 1s are struggling because they don't have manpower and visibility, and it's a key of how do you get that. And I don't think there's any perfect system out there. Everybody's trying something different. But I think the key is the ones that are the best practice are the ones that are getting out there and have a plan, are sticking to it, and implementing that plan to really validate those high-risk areas.